Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here. Please like and subscribe to the channel to give me more motivation to tell more interesting stories. Now let's begin. It happens in a blink. One moment, you're laughing with your cousin over airline peanuts, and the next, you're falling through the sky. The roar is deafening. You can't hear your own scream. The fuselage has split open like a tin can, and all around you, wine tears at everything, bags, bodies, dreams. You feel weightless, then heavy, then nothing at all. A seatbelt digs into your hip, then something slams into your head. Blackness. When you come to, it's cold. Not forgot your sweater. Cold, cold. The kind of cold that feels like punishment. Your skin stings. Your eyelashes are frozen together. You blink them apart and realize you're lying in snow, alone. Above you, only silence. Around you, wreckage. A bit of wing, a torn seatbelt flapping in the wind. No warm welcome committee. No help. And somehow you're alive. Your name is Ana Lucia. You're 17. You are on your way home from a school trip over the Andes Mountains. You shouldn't be here. No one should be here. You sit up. Bad idea. Pain shoots through your back like lightning. Your head swims. You taste blood, but you're breathing, so there's that. The sun is blinding. The air is razor thin. Welcome to 12,000 feet above sea level. You've landed in one of the most dangerous and remote places on Earth, and lucky you didn't even buy the upgrade. Far below, somewhere past these mountains, Chile stretches out with cities and roads and people who don't know a thing about you. Somewhere down there, your parents are probably watching the news or crying. You stand, barely. Every part of you screams no, but your feet say go. So you shuffle through the snow, calling out in a voice you barely recognize. Hello, is anyone? Nothing. Then again, how many people survive a plane ripping open midair?
Well, you apparently. Congratulations.
Later, when you recount this moment, people will say things like, "It's a miracle." And maybe it is. But miracles aren't warm. Miracles don't stitch you up. They drop you in the middle of nowhere and say good luck. Your fingers are already going numb. You start rummaging through what's left of the plane. Torn bags, broken trays, smashed suitcases. There's not much. A coat, a chocolate bar, a shoe that isn't yours. And what's this? A doll, half-melted face, one eye missing. You cradle it for a second before you realize your teeth are chattering hard enough to bite through your tongue. Time to move. You try to recall what you know about survival, which, as it turns out, is mostly based on movies. And in those, the hero always finds shelter fast. So you trudge toward what looks like the bulk of the fuselage. Maybe it'll block some of the wind. One step, then another. The snow comes up to your knees. It crunches like styrofoam under your feet. You don't know it yet, but this crunch is the sound of powdered death. The Andes don't forgive, and they certainly don't forget. When you finally reach the wreck, you find a piece of the plane that looks almost like a cave. The back half cracked open, but sheltered. You crawl inside. It smells like gasoline and burned plastic. You don't care. You curl up next to the torn vinyl seats and wrap yourself in a piece of carpet. It's itchy, damp, heaven. That's when you notice the silence again. No birds. No trees rustling. No engine sounds in the distance. Just your breath and the snow falling softly against steel. Historians still argue whether early high-altitude survival stories from World War II airmen downed over the Himalayas influenced modern rescue training. You wonder if anyone trained for this. As you drift off, heart pounding under the surface of your skin, one thought plays on loop in your mind like a broken record. You shouldn't be alive, but you are, and tomorrow the Andes will find new ways to test that fact. You wake up with your teeth locked together so tightly it takes effort to unclench them. Your jaw aches, your face burns, but not from heat burns from cold. The snow has crept in overnight, piling gently on your legs like a soft white blanket made by a murderous grandmother. Your fingers, bare blue, curled like claws, won't move at first. You rub them against the seat cushion beside you, then under your armpits. No good. It's going to take more than friction and positive thinking to keep those alive. You're still inside the wreckage. That's the good news. The bad news. It's morning now, and the Andes have had all night to plan your slow demise. You force yourself up. Every joint protests. Your legs feel like logs. Your head, still pulsing like a dying disco ball. You look around at the twisted metal, the scraps of luggage and the torn seat cushions you tried to use as a blanket. This isn't shelter. It's a tomb in progress. You whisper to yourself anything to fight the silence. Okay, what now? The sun is out, and its light bounces blindingly off the snow, painting everything in shades of white and silver. It looks almost pretty if you ignore the whole death trap thing. You spot movement. Your heart stutters. It's not a person. It's a piece of fabric flapping in the wind. A red scarf caught in what used to be someone's tray table. But you take it anyway. Wrap it around your head. Now you look like a lost tourist who's seriously overcommitted to hiking culture. Still, it's something. You step outside the fuselage. The snow crunches again, that now familiar foam board sound. The air is thin. Breathing is a chore. Your stomach groans. You ate half that chocolate bar last night, but the other half melted into your coat lining and froze solid. Gourmet. You yell again. Hello, anybody. This time, the wind answers, mocking you with a whisper that could almost be voices. Or maybe your brain is starting to fray at the edges. You wander further this time. Not far, you're still tethered by the fear of getting lost and never finding your metal cave again. But you move, one slow step after another. And then ahead a lump. You pause, stare. It's not a rock. It's someone. You shuffle forward, each step slower than the last. A shape buried under snow. You reach down, brush snow away with trembling hands. A face.
Eyes open.
Mouth frozen in a permanent gasp. You fall back, your breath caught in your throat. You've found your first body. He's young, maybe one of the students from the back of the plane. You don't recognize him. His coat is torn. His hand still grips a pack of playing cards. You can't stay here, but you also can't look away. So you whisper, "I'm sorry," and you keep walking. Later you find another and another. The mountain, it seems, did not waste time. You return to the fuselage, teeth, chattering skin, screaming for warmth. You huddle in a ball and try to remember your dad's voice. He once told you stories about pilots stranded in the Alps after their planes went down in World War II, how they ate leather boots, how one made it out with only a compass and a Bible. Your dad made it sound brave. Right now, it just sounds impossible. Historians still debate whether high-altitude crashes like these in early aviation history could have been survivable with better cabin pressure systems. You wouldn't mind some of that tech right about now. You drink melted snow from a dented thermos you found wedged between two seats. It tastes like aluminum and fear. You try to write something in the frost on the inside of the fuselage wall. A name, yours, but your fingers won't spell. Eventually you sleep again. This time the dreams are worse. You see your family sitting at the kitchen table laughing. You try to scream. They don't hear you. They keep laughing. Then one by one they vanish. You wake up crying, but the tears freeze before they leave your lashes. You whisper the only truth you have, "I am still here." And the wind answers with nothing. Just like before, just like always. The screaming starts as soon as the sun begins to fall behind the mountain. You hear it raw, distant, not quite human, a voice torn in half by cold air and desperation. You freeze mid-step, your breath caught like a hiccup in your throat. Then you run, stumble. Your legs don't so much run as shuffle in terror. You follow the echo, calling back. Hey, hello, I'm here. The snow muffles everything, makes sound feel like it's coming from everywhere and nowhere. But still, you push forward, heart pounding, vision blurry from the dry, frigid air. After what feels like forever, you see her, a girl, younger than you, covered in snow. She's cradling someone in her lap, rocking back and forth like a scratched record. You rush toward them. The boy isn't moving. His face is blue, his lips pale, his body still. The girl doesn't notice you right away. Her mind is stuck somewhere else, somewhere before the fall. When she finally looks up, her eyes are wide and unfocused. He was talking a minute ago, she whispers. I just closed my eyes for a second. You don't know what to say. What can you say? Instead, you kneel beside her, gently placing your hand over his. He's cold, hard, gone. You don't say that out loud. Instead, you help her to her feet. Her name is Mariella. She was in row 18. You tell her your name. She nods. It's enough. Together, you drag yourselves back to the fuselage. She doesn't speak for a long time. You don't blame her. There's nothing left to say. That night, more voices call out. Fewer this time. A boy, hoarse and weak, moaning your name, though you're sure he doesn't know it. Another girl, sobbing into the wind. Then silence again. It's not the kind of silence you get used to. It's the kind that feels heavier each time it comes back. The next morning, you gather what strength you have and go out again. More snow, more bodies. You find a girl frozen with her arms wrapped around her knees like she tried to make herself small before the end. You take her scarf. You feel guilty. You do it anyway. This is the Andes. The rules are different here. You and Mariella find 2 other survivors in the days that follow. One with a broken leg, one too dehydrated to speak. You bring them water. You try to share the melted chocolate bar crusted to your coat lining. You become something like a team. Barely. Mariella is the one who cries at night. You don't. You already cried everything out. Now there's just the blankness, the staring, the waiting. One of the boys, Mateo, keeps repeating, they'll come soon, like it's a song lyric or a spell. They'll come soon. They'll come soon. You hope he's right. But the days keep passing. And with each one, there are fewer voices. The screams stop. The whispers stop. The wind stays. You hear about tragedies like this in history, documentaries, the doomed Franklin expedition, the Dyatlov Pass mystery. Historians still argue whether the Dyatlov hikers were killed by avalanche infrasound or something stranger. Whatever it was, at least they didn't have to wait this long. You make a list in your head. People who are still alive. Things you can eat. Things you can't eat. Things you'll do if you survive. Number 4, changes daily. One day it's call my mom. Another day, never get on a plane again. Today, eat pancakes. All the pancakes. You scribble this last one into the side of the fuselage using a rock. The letters are crooked and barely legible, but it's yours. That night, someone dies in their sleep beside you. You wake up to stillness, to coldness, to a body that's heavier than it was yesterday. You don't scream. You don't cry. You just look away and pull the blanket tighter. You whisper to yourself one more day, and somehow, it is. You never imagined a piece of an airplane could feel like home, but here you are, sleeping beneath crumpled aluminum and shredded upholstery, and it's the closest thing you've got to a roof. The fuselage, what's left of it, is your base, your cave, your chapel. It groans in the wind but holds, barely. Every day you wake up half buried in snow, surrounded by the others, Mariela Mateo, the boy with the broken leg whose name might be Daniel, but no one's quite sure. You all look like hollow-eyed ghosts. Even your shadows seem thinner. You know you should leave, go down the mountain, find help. But every time you step outside the Andes, remind you who's boss. This place isn't meant for people. The mountains stretch endlessly peaks, like blades, the white so bright it hurts your eyes. There's no path, no hint of civilization, just snowstone and silence. You spend most of the day searching the wreckage, what's left of it. The impact scattered everything like cruel confetti. You dig with numb fingers, unearthing crushed backpacks, a broken mirror, a few bottles of cheap soda turned into frozen grenades. You find half a magazine. The pages are stiff with frost, but you read them anyway. Ads for perfume sunglasses, the kind of normalcy that now feels alien. You tear out a page with a photo of a beach and tape it to the wall of the fuselage using chewing gum. Luxury Andes edition. You also find a radio, or part of one. Mateo insists he can fix it. He used to help his uncle with car stereos. You don't have the heart to remind him that car stereos don't usually function 12,000 feet up, with half their insides missing. But hope is hope, so you let him try. You help Mariela reinforce the fuselage wall with metal panels scavenged from the tail section. You work slowly, carefully. Every movement risks collapse, or worse, drawing the attention of the cold again. It's always watching. You start naming things. The fire pit is Camp Toasty. The biggest piece of wing is the observation deck. You give yourselves code names. You are Captain Crunch. Mariela is Ice Queen. Daniel, if that's really his name, becomes the sleeping log. It's stupid. It's juvenile. It's survival. Because if you don't laugh at least once a day, you might forget how. And then you find it. Half buried under a wing, a body. Not unusual at this point. But this one is wearing a heavy coat. You roll him gently, murmuring an apology. In the inner pocket, you find a bottle of whiskey. Half full. Miraculous. You don't drink it. Not yet. You stash it. Emergency morale. That night, the wind howls like a banshee. The fuselage shudders. You press your back to the wall and pray it holds. And while the others sleep, you open the broken mirror and stare at yourself. Who is this person? Cheeks sunken, lips cracked, hair frozen in tufts. This isn't you. But your eyes are the same, and they're still open. Historians still debate whether the survivors of Flight 571, the 1972 Andes crash, were truly prepared for what came after the rescue. The world expected gratitude. What they got were haunted stares. You don't think about what comes after. Right now, it's about this day, this hour, this breath. Later, when you can't sleep, you creep outside. The snow has stopped. The stars are out, millions of them, sharp and close, like pins stuck in black velvet. You'd forgotten how many there could be. And then far in the distance, you see something, a red light, blinking. Your breath catches. Another survivor, a plane, an illusion. You crawl back into the fuselage, gently shake Mateo awake. He sees it too. You all gather watching from the observation deck. No one speaks. It blinks a few more times, then vanishes. A hallucination, an atmospheric trick, no one knows. But you saw it, and for the first time in days, real, gut-deep days, you feel something that could be mistaken for hope. Maybe the world hasn't forgotten you after all. You wake up with your mouth so dry, it feels like sandpaper was left on your tongue overnight. Your lips have split. Your throat hurts when you swallow. Even blinking makes your head pound. You're dehydrated, and there's no river, no lake, no helpful cartoon glacier trickling clear water into a fresh little stream. Just snow, endless, blinding snow. You stare at it like it's mocking you, because you know The rules: don't eat snow directly, lowers your core temperature, leads to hypothermia. It's survival 101. But no one tells you what to do when your throat feels like it's lined with gravel and your insides are curling inward from thirst. You crunch a little snow anyway, immediately regret it. But it gives you an idea. Back inside the fuselage, you rummage through the supplies and find a dented aluminum tray, the kind they use to serve those sad airline meals. You place it near the fire pit, gather snow, and wait. Melt, drip, sip. Warm snow water tastes like heaven, like tears, like maybe you won't die today. Everyone takes turns melting snow. The aluminum tray becomes the holy grail. You guard it like a raccoon guarding shiny things, and when someone accidentally knocks it over, Mateo almost cries. Water becomes your currency, your priority. It tastes like metal and ash, but you don't care. You build a snow collection system. Okay, system might be a generous term. It's a seatbelt tied to a tray, tilted toward a carved-out bucket made from a plastic drawer. But it works. Ish. You each get a few sips a day. It's enough to keep your organs in semi-working condition, and your brain just clear enough to keep worrying. Later that afternoon, you go out scouting. Carefully. The clouds are rolling in again, low and thick and gray, like the belly of some sleeping beast. You don't stray far from the fuselage, but you're drawn to something. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's instinct. You crest a small hill and look down. There's another chunk of wreckage. You run well, hobble quickly. Inside is a suitcase. You open it. Clothes. Not useful. But tucked in the corner, a lighter, a tiny pot, and a tin of hard candy that smells faintly of lemon. You almost scream. Back at the fuselage, the lighter earns you hero status. Mateo bows dramatically. Mariella hugs you. You hand out candy like a benevolent dictator and chew slowly, letting the sugar melt on your tongue like gold. It's your first real calories in days. You sleep better that night. Sort of. Because even with the candy and the water and the fire that now lights more easily, the mountain keeps pressing in. You dream of lakes, swimming pools, waterfalls made of soda. You wake up chewing your blanket. Still, the snow melt system works. You get better at rationing. You mark time by bottles filled. And you write a message in the snow. Big block letters. Help, alive. You position shiny tray pieces nearby. Maybe, just maybe, a passing plane will catch the glint. Historians still argue whether early distress signals from remote crash survivors, painted rocks, fires, even smoke messages were effective, or just psychological crutches. You're okay with either, because sometimes psychological crutches are all that keep you standing. And then on the seventh day, you wake up to silence. The wind has stopped. The sky is crystal blue, the kind of blue that hurts to look at. You crawl outside and blink at the scene. It's still, too still. And then you notice the water tray is frozen solid. Overnight, the temperature must have dropped another 10 degrees. You tap it. Nothing. Solid ice. You have to chip it with your knife to even reach slush. You're running out of tricks. You look at the mountains, the ones that hold you in their white skeletal arms, and say, without any drama, "Okay, I get it. You don't want us here." But you're still not leaving. You light the fire, melt more snow, and drink. Slowly. Like someone who still believes this isn't how the story ends. The sound is unmistakable. A slow crunching step, then another. Not the wind, not falling snow. Something is moving outside the fuselage. You freeze mid-sip melted snow halfway to your mouth in a plastic cup. Your eyes dart to Mariella. She's heard it too. So has Mateo. No one speaks. You lean forward, your breath shallow, ears straining. Crunch, crunch, pause. Too heavy for a bird. Too slow for a rabbit. Too deliberate. You grab your trusty metal pole, once a seat frame, now a survival spear, and creep toward the opening in the fuselage. Outside, the light is blinding. The snow glows white hot. You shade your eyes and scan the horizon. There's something moving. It's small, slow. Your mind leaps through possibilities. A survivor, a rescuer, an animal. You step cautiously into the snow. Your legs ache. Your skin feels like it's been sanded raw. You take slow, careful steps, each one threatening to collapse beneath you. Then you see it. A figure, a boy, bent over one arm, limp at his side, dragging himself across the snow. You shout. He doesn't respond. You run or try. Your feet stumble, your lungs burn, but you close the distance. When you reach him, he collapses into your arms, ice clinging to his hair, face half covered in frostbite. His lips are blue. His eyes are barely open. He mumbles something. It sounds like your name. You recognize him. His name is Gabriel. He was in the back of the plane, you think. You thought he was dead. He almost was. You yell for the others. Matteo comes running with a blanket. Mariella brings melted snow. Together, you drag Gabriel back to the fuselage and lay him near the fire. He shivers violently, then goes still. For a moment, you think you've lost him, but then his breath. Faint. But there, he lives. You spend hours warming him, feeding him sips of water, rubbing his limbs to coax blood back into them. He sleeps through most of it. When he wakes, his eyes scan your faces like he's seeing ghosts. You found me, he whispers. You found us, you whisper back. Later, Gabriel tells you he crawled for 2 days. He was trapped under part of the plane, couldn't feel his legs, thought he'd die there. Then the snow shifted, gave him a way out. He saw your smoke signal. That saved him. You don't cry, but Mariella does. It feels good. A win. You needed a win. That night you tell jokes around the fire, real ones, not desperate sarcasm. Gabriel even laughs. It's dry and rough like a sandblaster going off, but it's a laugh. You count it as medicine. You sleep better. The wind is still. The stars feel closer. You dream of walking through a city again, not your hometown, somewhere unknown. But there's light, music, and the air doesn't try to kill you. When you wake, Gabriel is asleep beside you. You get up early, gather snow for melting, and find more wreckage to salvage. You feel strong, not superhero strong, but alive strong. And then you spot something new. Tracks, not yours, not Gabriel's. You crouch, examine the snow. They're shallow, maybe 24 hours old. Boot prints. Someone else is out here. A survivor. A hiker. You don't know. You follow them for a few hundred feet before they disappear into a rocky outcrop. You don't go further. You know better than to risk getting lost. The Andes eats wanderers. But you mark the spot. Memorize the route. It could be important. You return to camp with more questions than answers. Matteo sharpens the metal rods. Mariella stitches a sleeve with wire and scraps. Gabriel sleeps. You journal. Historians still debate whether ancient Incan messengers, Chasqui, ran trails through these very mountains, using only memory and terrain markers. Maybe some of their instincts are in your bones now. Because you feel it, the land is changing. Something is coming. A shift. Maybe good, maybe terrible, but different. You lie beside the fire that night, watching the embers dance. And you whisper something into the dark you haven't said in a while. I'm not afraid, because fear won't save you. But moving forward just might. You knew the question was coming. You just didn't know it would be you who asked it. It happens on the 12th day. The food is gone. Not running low, not let's ration this carefully. Gone. The candy tin has been licked clean. The last soda bottle emptied days ago. Matteo tried chewing tree bark yesterday. It didn't go well. Gabriel vomited when he stood up. Mariella's lips are cracked so deep they bleed without warning. You all sit together in silence. And then quietly, carefully, you say it. What about the body? The words hang in the air like frost. No one responds at first. Then Matteo says, we don't have to yet. But it's not a no. It's a not yet. The idea doesn't go away. It lingers in the corners, under the tarps behind your eyes when you sleep. The knowledge that help might not come and that you are not alone, even if most of them are no longer breathing. You're 17. You've been to sleepovers. You've watched horror movies. You've cried over exams. This isn't supposed to be part of your life script. But the Andes has its own storyline, and it's hungry. The next morning you wake early. The sun is out. Too bright. Too deceptive. You gather snow, boil it, and then you go to the place where the dead are. Not all of them, just the ones buried close by. You kneel. You apologize. You cry. Then deliberately you begin. It's not what the movies make it out to be. There's no dramatic music, no moral epiphany, just cold hands, stiff limbs, and survival instincts swallowing shame. You take only what's necessary, nothing more. Back at the fuselage, no one asks where the meat came from. No one has to. You boil it, slice it thin, pass it out without comment. You chew, slowly. No one vomits, no one cries. You stare at the snow outside, chew again, and feel the heat hit your stomach. Historians still argue whether the decisions made by Flight 571 survivors, famously resorting to cannibalism, were born from desperation or sheer logic. You don't need a historian. You were there. It's survival. Nothing more, nothing less. Later, Gabriel speaks. They saved us, he says. We should remember that. And you do. You start saying their names. Not out loud, not yet. But in your journal, each person who helped keep you alive, even in death.
You give them a page.
Some names you don't know. You write row 12 red jacket or girl with silver bracelet. Each entry is a kind of memorial, a way to say thank you that doesn't make your soul unravel. Mariella takes one of the bracelets and weaves it into the shelter wall. Something to remind us, she says. You nod. You don't talk about it again, but it's there, in the silence between sentences, in the way Matteo always leaves a bite of food on his plate, then stares at it like it's sacred. You sleep better that night, maybe from the warmth in your stomach, maybe from the acceptance in your mind. The wind howls outside, but it no longer owns you. You've crossed a line.
And you're still here.
The next day, something incredible happens. You see birds, 2 of them, circling overhead. Not scavengers, not vultures, real birds. You laugh like actual belly-shaking laughter. Gabriel thinks they mean you're closer to civilization. Mariella thinks they're lost like you. You don't care. Their life, their motion, their proof the world still spins beyond this frozen purgatory. You spend the rest of the day organizing supplies, strengthening the shelter, melting more snow. Everything feels sharper now, focused. You know you can't stay here much longer. The mountain has allowed you to survive, but it's not going to save you. That's going to be up to you. You stare at the peak to the west, jagged, brutal, almost mythical in size. And you whisper to the bones beneath your feet, "Thank you." Now we climb. The climb begins before your body is ready, but your soul is already halfway up the mountain. You make the decision at sunrise. The others don't argue. Matteo is too weak. Mariella, too afraid. Gabriel just nods. He understands. You're going. Not because you're the strongest, but because someone has to. You wrap your feet in extra socks, tie 2 pieces of fuselage metal to your boots like crude snowshoes, and wear 3 coats layered like armor. You leave your journal with Mariella. If I don't come back, you say, finish the story. She doesn't answer. She just hugs you, and it feels like goodbye. You begin the ascent with frozen fingers, a stomach half full, and a heart that won't shut up. The slope is steep. Your body protests with every step. Your breath rasps, your lips crack. The snow is like wet cement dragging at your legs. But you keep going, higher and higher. Every time you look up, the peak seems further away. At first, you try counting your steps 20 forward. Rest, repeat. Then you switch to music in your head. You hum ABBA's Fernando for a full hour before switching to something even worse, the airline safety jingle. You actually laugh, out loud. You must be losing it. Halfway up, you find a piece of the plane, a wheel, bent, torn, snow blasted. You sit beside it and rest. There's no sound but wind and your own ragged breath. You think of the people who've tried things like this before, early mountaineers, Incan messengers, stranded soldiers in places like the Himalayas. Historians still debate whether some disappeared simply because they climbed in the wrong direction. You look around and pray this isn't one of those climbs. You eat a chunk of hard meat and sip melted snow. Every muscle in your body wants to quit, but something deep inside you says no. So you keep going. The snow gets thinner as you rise, your footing more treacherous. At one point, your left foot slips and you fall sliding several feet before your arm catches on a jagged rock. Pain shoots through you. You scream. No one hears it. You sit in the snow, clutching your wrist. It's not broken, just bruised, but you're shaking now from pain, from fear, from the cold that never really leaves. You want to go back, but you don't. You keep climbing. Eventually you reach a plateau, and what you see makes you sob. Below you valleys, forest, a river, and far, far in the distance, a road. You can't believe it. You blink, squint, but it's there, a real road, which means people, which means help, which means hope. You slide down a bit, find a small ledge out of the wind and sit. You tear a strip of cloth from your jacket, tie it to a stick, and drive it into the snow. A marker. If you make it back, you'll know the way. You sit there until the sun begins to dip, casting long shadows across the mountainside. You can't stay here, but you can't stop grinning either. You begin your descent, slower, more careful. At one point, you fall again, land hard on your hip. You grunt, but keep going. You talk to yourself, out loud, like a coach. Almost there. Don't die now, dummy. You're gonna make it. By the time you reach the base, your knees are mush. Your skin is raw. Your teeth chatter so hard, your jaw aches. But the others are waiting. Mariella screams when she sees you. They pull you inside the fuselage, wrap you in warmth, feed you. Gabriel touches your arm and says, "Did you see anything?" You nod and whisper, "A road." The next hour is chaos, talking, crying, planning. But deep down you know, this is it. You found the way. You sleep that night with a fire at your feet and stars above your head. The mountain doesn't feel quite as cruel. And before your eyes close, you whisper a single promise into the dark. Tomorrow we go together. You wake before the sun, a dull ache throbbing through your legs. The memory of the road is still fresh in your mind, but your body feels like it was hit by a dozen rugby teams. Slowly, all night. Still you sit up, because today's the day. Today you descend, not alone this time. Mateo can't go. His leg's still a mess. Mariella insists on staying with him. Gabriel, though, he's ready. You see it in his eyes. No hesitation, no second guessing. He straps on his coat and his resolve like matching gear. You eat a thin strip of meat. Drink melted snow and pack your things. A lighter, the last bit of hard candy, the dull metal knife, and a torn page from your journal with a sketched map of the route you climbed. Mariella hugs you both before you go. She presses something into your palm, a silver ring, her mother's. "Trade it if you need to," she says. You nod. You don't say goodbye, not really. You say, "Keep the fire going." And then you walk. Back up the ridge, retracing your own frozen footprints, you and Gabriel move like ghosts. The climb is harder this time. Your body's worn thin, your spirit stretched to paper. But your mind is sharp, fixed on the image of that road. Gabriel's quiet, except for the occasional grunt when he slips or stumbles. You don't fill the silence. There's no room for small talk up here, just breath and snow and climb. It takes twice as long to reach the plateau, but you do. And there it is again. The road, still far, but real. You drop to your knees, not in worship, just release. Gabriel kneels beside you. He's crying. You don't stop him. Instead, you plan. The map in your head says it'll take 2 more days, maybe 3. You can do that. Probably. If the weather holds. If your legs don't quit. If your heart keeps beating. You descend the other side carefully. It's steeper, rockier, but warmer, bare patches of earth peek through the snow. Birds sing here. You hadn't realized how much you missed that sound. You camp that night in a hollow between 2 boulders, building a small fire with what little wood you find. The flame is weak, but alive. Like you. You split the last of the candy. Gabriel laughs when he drops his in the dirt, then eats it anyway. Dirt's organic, he shrugs. You snort. That might be your first real laugh in 2 weeks. That night you sleep curled in a ball, back to back, with Gabriel listening to wind instead of wolves. The next day is harder. Your knees shake. Your fingers bleed. Gabriel's limp is worse than he lets on. You stop often, drink little, talk even less. But you move. You pass skeletal trees. You hear the faint roar of a river. You follow it. It's not on your map, but it feels right. Historians still argue whether early indigenous trails through the Andes followed intuition more than geometry. You get that now. You don't need GPS. You need gut. You reach the valley floor by sunset, and that's when you see it, a hut. Small, crooked, smoke curling from a chimney. Gabriel grabs your arm. You run, or rather hobble with everything you have left. You reach the hut and knock weakly at first, then with more force. The door opens. An old man stands there, wrinkled, confused, and when he sees you muddy bruised, wrapped in rags, he gasps like he's seen a ghost. You collapse into his doorway, the last thing you hear before the world fades. Dios mío, eres real? My God, are you real? And then darkness. You wake in warmth, blankets, a real roof, a fire that smells of wood and not rubber. Gabriel sits nearby, bandaged, asleep. The man, his name is Miguel, brings you soup. You sip slowly. Tears run down your face with every swallow. You tell him your story. He listens in silence. When you finish, he stands, grabs his radio, and calls for help. You're going home, not today, but soon. And when you do, you'll return with helicopters. For the others, you'll keep your promise. You always meant to. You'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be warm. Real warmth, the kind that comes from walls and blankets and soup made by someone who wasn't trapped in a metal tube with you for weeks. Miguel's hut is tiny, but it might as well be a palace. You stay there for 2 days. Your body protests everything. Food, sleep, movement. It's like your muscles don't believe it's over yet, like your cells are still bracing for more frost and death. But each day, you wake to something new. Day 1, a proper bed. Day 2, a change of clothes. Day 3, the sound of a helicopter. You rush outside with Gabriel shielding your eyes from the dust and roar of the blades. The pilot steps out, so does a soldier, and then you hear the words that will change everything. We've been looking for you. You almost laugh, almost. They ask questions, lots of them. Where is the crash site? How many survived? What do you need? You answer clearly. You give directions, names, dates like a human GPS with cracked lips and bad posture. They radio ahead. Another team is dispatched. Your friends are going to be rescued. You made it. That night, you lie in Miguel's hut, staring at the rafters. Gabriel sleeps beside you again. He talks in his sleep. Nonsense, fragments, math equations, song lyrics. You wonder if you did the same during the worst nights on the mountain. In the morning, they fly you out. It's surreal seeing the ground move beneath you instead of watching it try to kill you. The crash site looks small from above, too small, like a toy someone left behind in a sandbox. But you remember every inch. The helicopter banks and soars toward a hospital in San Fernando. You're met by medics pressmen in uniforms with too many buttons. They speak to you gently, as if you'll shatter if their voices rise too high. They're not wrong. Inside the hospital, there's a hallway lined with people. Your name echoes. A woman rushes forward, eyes wide, mouth trembling. It's your mother. She hugs you so tight you think your ribs will crack. You don't care. You bury your face in her shoulder and say the only thing that matters: I came back. The days that follow are a blur. Doctors, reporters, officials. You answer questions until your throat goes numb. Some ask with kindness, others not so much. You notice the shift the moment the focus turns from how you survived to what you did to survive. The food, the decisions. You hear the word whispered in hallways. Cannibal. Some ask it out loud. You don't answer. You don't owe them that. Historians still argue whether the media's sensationalism around survival cannibalism distracts from the resilience and brilliance of the survivors themselves. You're starting to agree. Mariela and Mateo are rescued 2 days after you. The reunion is quiet, emotional, real. Mateo cries into your shoulder. Mariela doesn't let go of your hand for 3 hours. Together you visit the families of those who didn't make it. It's hard, but you go. You tell them their loved ones fought, helped, gave. You tell the truth without the ugliness, without the judgment. One woman presses her son's scarf into your hands. You kept him alive, she says. You nod, even if it nearly broke you. 1 week later, you're on TV. A soft-spoken anchor in a pastel blazer asks you what the hardest part was. You pause. Think about saying the snow, or the hunger, or the way my ribs stuck out like fence posts. But instead you say, not knowing if anyone was coming, because that's what kills you in the end. Not the cold, not the pain, the waiting. Back at home, you sleep with the window open, just a crack. You like the cold now, a little. It reminds you that you won. Gabriel starts a blog. Mateo writes a book. Mariela studies medicine. You do interviews, yes, but mostly you rest. And you write. You write everything down. You keep the promise you made on the mountain. The journal becomes your memory, your grief, your triumph, your survival. Because some stories need to be told, no matter how painful, no matter how cold. And when the nightmares come, and they still do, you light a candle beside your bed, like a tiny fire, like a beacon in the snow, to remind yourself you were there and you came back. You don't expect the world to move on so quickly. One day you're a survivor, a miracle, a headline. The next, you're just another name in a news ticker no one reads anymore. At first, the calls don't stop. Talk shows, podcasts, documentaries. You even get a request to appear on a cooking show, Survival Cuisine. You laugh until it feels cruel. Then you say, no. They want details. They want trauma neatly packaged, just tragic enough to sell, but not so graphic it messes with dinner. But the Andes weren't cinematic. They were merciless, cold, long, real. And while everyone's moved on to the next disaster, you're still waking up in a cold sweat, hearing the wind and the cracking metal of the fuselage. So you disappear for a while. You take a train to nowhere, sleep in a cabin for 2 weeks, and listen to nothing but the rain. No interviews, no questions, just space. Gabriel sends you letters. The first one says they're trying to turn us into characters. He's right. The second says, we were real before the crash. That's what I want to remember. You pin that one above your desk. You eventually go back to school, not because you're ready, but because life keeps asking questions, and you might as well try answering them. The halls are quieter when you walk through them. People whisper, not cruelly, just awkwardly, like they don't know how to talk to someone who's been to the edge and come back with snow still clinging to their bones. One girl hands you a thermos with hot tea and says nothing. That helps. You go to therapy. At first you lie. I'm fine. It wasn't that bad. I'm just happy to be alive. Then one day, the therapist says, what did the cold sound like?
And you break.
Because no one's ever asked that. Not the producers, not the police, not even your mother. You tell her it didn't sound like anything. That's what made it terrifying. And finally someone understands. Months pass. The nightmares fade. You stop flinching every time you hear a jet engine overhead. You start going out more. You eat chocolate without guilt. You leave your scarf at home once in spring and don't feel like you're tempting fate. Mariella visits. You two walk in the park for hours, not saying much. At one point, she takes your hand. We're still here, she whispers. You squeeze back. Yeah, we are. One night, you sit alone in your room. The journal is open. You flip through the pages, some smudged, some tear-streaked, all written, with hands shaking from cold and grief and hunger. You reach the back cover and see a note you don't remember writing. If you live, tell it honestly. So you do. You begin writing the full story, not just what happened, but what it felt like. The loneliness, the moral lines you crossed, the tiny miracles, the dead who saved the living. It's not for fame, not for a publisher, just for you. A record, a reckoning, a promise kept. Historians still debate the long-term effects of survival trauma. Some argue it strengthens resolve. Others say it breaks something fundamental. You're not sure which side you're on, maybe both. But either way, you're here. And that's the beginning of everything. Weeks later, you return to the Andes. Not to the crash site, not yet. That's too much. But close enough to see the peaks. Close enough to stand in the wind again and say, I remember. Close enough to thank the mountain for sparing you. Close enough to whisper to those still resting in the snow, we made it out. We lived because of you. You drop a flower into the wind. It twirls, once catches a gust, and disappears into white, just like they did. But this time you get to go home. There's a quiet that follows survival. Not silence exactly, but something more complicated. You notice it in the little things. The way you pause before turning on the shower, as if expecting it not to work. The way your fingers instinctively wrap around cups of warm tea, like they're afraid of letting go. The way your ears strain for voices every time you're alone, listening for someone who's not there. It's the survival still living inside you long after you've returned to the world. You get used to people looking at you differently. Some are curious, some are inspired, a few are scared. They don't know what to say, so they don't say anything at all. And honestly, that's better than the ones who ask, so what was the worst part? What do they expect you to say? The part where my stomach forgot how to growl. The part where I said goodbye to my name. The part where I became someone I never asked to be. You smile politely, probably the cold you say. It's easier. One day you go to the grocery store and stand in front of the bread aisle for 20 minutes. You're not hungry. You're not even shopping. You're just there, staring at shelves stacked with more than you ever had on that mountain. Rows and rows of calories, colors, choices. And yet, you're paralyzed. How do you decide what you want when you spent weeks taking only what you needed? The moment passes. You walk out empty-handed. You go home and eat rice with butter. It's enough. You see Gabriel again. He's cut his hair, smiles more now. Still walks with a slight limp, but he jokes about it. calls it his mountain medal. You meet for coffee. At one point he says, "Do you ever feel guilty when you're too happy?" And you nod, because yes, all the time. It feels wrong to laugh too loud when others stayed behind, to enjoy the sun when so many died in the snow. You both sit there in silence for a long while. Then you laugh anyway, and it feels like rebellion. You decide not to go back to the crash site. Not yet, maybe not ever. Instead, you write a letter to each person who didn't make it, some with names, some with only memories. "Thank you. You helped me live. I remember you." You burn the letters one by one in a campfire. Watch the ashes swirl up into the night like smoke signals sent to the stars. And just like that, something lifts. Not gone, but lighter. The documentary eventually airs. They get most of it right, some of it wrong. You cry through parts. You turn off the volume through others. But when they show your face, half-frozen eyes, sharp fire, flickering in the reflection of the fuselage, you recognize her. Not the victim, the fighter. You realize she's still in you, always will be. People still ask you what the experience taught you. You say that survival isn't brave, it's necessary. They nod like they understand, but they don't. Only the ones who lived it with you truly do. Mariela, Mateo. Gabriel. You still text sometimes, usually just emojis or jokes. One day Gabriel sends you a photo of his feet in snow boots. The caption reads, "Still not dead." You reply, "Same, it's not poetry, but it's truth." You start hiking, just little trails at first, then bigger ones. You like the sound of your boots on dirt, like a heartbeat you can control. You learn to read the wind again, to spot bird calls, to listen to silence and know it doesn't always mean danger. You camp under stars that feel just like the ones above the Andes. And one night alone in your tent you whisper, "I forgive you." To the mountain, to yourself, to the version of you that had to do the unthinkable to stay alive. Because if she hadn't, you wouldn't be here. And there's still so much left to see, so much left to tell. It hits you on an ordinary Tuesday. You're folding laundry, soft cotton shirts, fluffy socks, clothes that don't crunch with frost, and suddenly, without warning, you cry. Not loud, not panicked, just steady tears sliding down your cheeks like something inside you cracked open without asking. You sit on the floor holding a sweatshirt and let the memory in. The way snow creaked under your knees, the way the fuselage smelled like metal smoke and skin, the way silence used to mean someone was gone. You thought you'd processed it. You thought you'd moved on. But trauma's tricky. It doesn't check your calendar. It doesn't wait for permission. It arrives with the laundry, or in the middle of a happy dinner, or when a cloud passes a little too slowly over the sun. You wipe your face and keep folding. Because crying doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you remember. You give a talk at a university. They invite you to speak about survival. You agree mostly out of curiosity. You think 10 people will show up. Instead, it's a packed auditorium. You stand at the podium, palms sweating, and for a moment you're back in the snow, back in the wreckage, back in that moment before you decided you weren't going to die. Then you look up, and you speak. You tell the story, not the movie version, not the one with orchestral music and perfect metaphors, the real one, about the cold, the choices, the ones you lost, and the ones you brought home. You end with this: "I thought survival would feel like victory. It doesn't. It feels like responsibility. But that's okay, because we get to tell the story." And they stand, all of them. You don't cry, but your voice shakes. You meet someone. It happens slowly. They don't ask about the crash on the first date, or the second, or the fifth. They ask what your favorite dessert is, what music you listen to when you're sad, what made you laugh as a kid. And one day, when you tell them the story, really tell them, they don't flinch. They just hold your hand.
And you realize You're not just surviving anymore.
You're living. You get a tattoo, just one word on the inside of your wrist. Still, because you're still here. Still breathing. Still feeling. Still remembering. Still you. Historians still argue what makes a survivor. Is it endurance, luck, faith? You think it's something quieter, the ability to carry both the horror and the hope without dropping either. You write a book, not for the world, for the ones who can't tell their part of the story anymore. You include their names, their laughter, their fear, their strength, the way they sat in the dark and shared their last candy without complaint. You call it The Ones Who Stayed, because they did, with you, in every step, every breath. And when the anniversary comes, year 1, year 5, year 10, you light a candle, not in mourning, but in memory. You whisper their names. You whisper thank you. You look out the window and see snow falling gently on your street. It used to scare you. Now it feels like a song you once knew by heart, one you survived, and one you'll never forget. The anniversary memorial is quieter this year. No cameras, no microphones. Just you, Mariela Mateo, and Gabriel sitting on a hillside under a thin sky snow, crunching beneath you like an old friend. You've brought nothing flashy, just flowers, just silence. The wind whispers through the pine trees. No one needs to say it aloud, but you all feel it. You've changed, not just from the crash, but from survival, from healing. You pull out your journal, the original one, edges curled, ink faded but fierce. Everyone leans closer. You start to read. The first entry is short, just one line. Day 1, I'm still alive. Mateo smiles. Mariela wipes her cheek. Gabriel closes his eyes. You read a few more. You stop at one that says, Day 7, I ate, I cried, I didn't die. That counts. Everyone laughs softly, not at you, with you. The sun begins to dip behind the mountains. Golden light spills across the valley, and you all sit still, wrapped in coats and memory. You look toward the west where the climb began, where everything changed. You think of the dead, not as shadows, not as ghosts, but as companions. They aren't haunting you, they're with you, in your skin, in your choices, in the way you now pause before judging anything or anyone too quickly. You spend the night at a nearby cabin. It's warm, sturdy, filled with stories that aren't yours, and that's a comfort. Before bed, Gabriel makes tea and burns sage. Mateo reads a poem. Mariela pulls out 4 small candles. One for each of us, she says, one for them. You all light yours. And sit. You talk about normal things, work, pets, the weird smell on airplanes. At some point, you laugh so hard you spill tea on your socks. No one panics. No one freezes. You clean it up and keep talking. You wake in the night and step outside. The stars above you are exactly as they were on the mountain. Sharp, cold, infinite, and you feel something you haven't in a long time. Peace. In the morning, before heading down the trail, you stop at the edge of a cliff and shout, We remember you. Your voice echoes off. The trees bounces across the valley. For a moment, the wind stills. As if it heard you, you return to your town and go about life with a rhythm now familiar. Wake, write, work, breathe. Sometimes you speak at schools. Sometimes you speak at prisons. Survivors come in many forms, you've learned. Not all of them climb mountains. Some crawl through years of grief. Some live with the weight of invisible wounds. Some are still trapped, waiting to be found. You tell them this. You don't have to be okay. You just have to be here. And that message, it lands. It matters. Because there's a difference between a story that entertains and a story that saves. You sit on a bench one fall afternoon, watching kids play in a pile of leaves. One girl runs past you, laughing, her cheeks red from wind, her breath fogging in the air. She reminds you of someone, not from the crash, From before. From you before everything changed. You smile at the thought because you've earned this moment, not through heroics, not through drama, but through persistence, through staying, through saying yes to life even when it gave you every reason to say no. And that's real survival. Time passes the way glaciers move slowly but undeniably. You're older now, not by decades, but by weight. The kind of age that doesn't show up in wrinkles or gray hairs, the kind that lives in your bones. Quiet, deep, permanent. You've learned to live with it. Sometimes you almost forget the mountain, until a smell, a sound, a cold breeze brings it all rushing back. But it doesn't knock you over anymore. You've grown stronger, more tender too. You volunteer at a local rescue group now. Not for the glory there's none in digging through snow or searching ravines for lost hikers, but you understand something they don't. What it feels like to be found. One evening, after a search mission brings in a young girl who'd been missing for 2 nights, she asks you the same question you asked yourself on the mountain. Why did they come for me? And you say the words you wished someone had said to you. Because you matter, even if you didn't believe it at the time. She nods slowly, then cries in your arms. You hold her until she stops shaking. You don't tell her that you still shake sometimes too. Some truths are best discovered in your own time. You finally go back to the crash site, not in winter, in early fall when the snow is melting and the ground is soft and wildflowers grow in defiant little patches near the base of the ridge. You go alone, not because no one wanted to come, because you needed to. You bring your journal, your boots, a small pack, and one photo, all of you, the ones who survived standing together weeks after the rescue. Thinner, paler, changed, but smiling. You reach the site just before sunset. It's quieter now, more peaceful. The wreckage is mostly gone, taken by time weather or souvenir seekers, but the bones of the fuselage remain twisted, rusted, half buried. You sit in the same place you sat on day 3. The cold doesn't bite anymore. The wind feels gentler. The sky looks just as endless as it did the first time you asked, "Will anyone ever find us?" And now you answer, yes. You light a small candle and place it on a rock. The wind tries to blow it out, but it holds, flickers, glows. You read aloud from the journal, one entry, just one, the one that says, "If you live, tell it honestly." You close the book. You whisper their names again. You listen. No voice answers back, but you don't need one, because they're not gone. They're part of you, in the way you speak, in the way you listen, in the way you endure. You walk back down the mountain slowly, not as someone escaping, but as someone who came home to say goodbye, not to the people you lost, but to the person you used to be. You reach the tree line, turn one last time and whisper, "Thank you for everything." Then you leave. And this time you don't look back. You rest now in the quiet place after stories end. The mountain is behind you, the noise, the fear, the days stitched together by hunger and firelight, their memories now, worn but intact, fragile but firm. You carry them the way people carry old letters tucked close unread for years but never thrown away. The world moves forward as it always does. Planes fly overhead, winter returns, and the Andes still rise above clouds like silent giants. But you breathe easier now, deeper, truer, because you know something most people never will. You know what it is to vanish, to be forgotten by search parties' maps time, to whisper your own name in the dark just to prove it still exists, and then miraculously to come back, not unbroken, not unchanged, but alive, fully, gratefully. You light candles on certain days, not because grief demands it, but because memory deserves it. You speak gently to yourself when the cold creeps in again, not with panic, but with compassion. You're safe now, you whisper. You're home. And sometimes late at night you dream of snow, not the brutal kind, not the kind that blinds or buries, the kind that glows in the moonlight, that soft kind, the kind that reminds you, even after devastation, even after the worst of it, something beautiful still falls from the sky. And when it lands, it doesn't break you anymore. It just settles quietly around your shoulders and waits with you for spring,